Hello. Thank you for joining me. So apparently Marco Rubio went to Europe, to Munich, and extended an olive branch. Okay, he's the Secretary of State here in America. Very high up position in the Trump administration. He actually is part of the old guard of the Republican Party. He's been around forever. And back in the day, especially in the 2016 elections, he was a major critic of Trump, calling Trump a con artist, saying all sorts of terrible things about him. True things about him. But then he sold out to Trump, and now he's the Secretary of State. Anyway, he's gone to Europe, and I don't know what he's doing. He's groveling at their feet. I guess they realized that they've made a major catastrophic error in backstabbing our closest allies for no reason. And so they sent Marco Rubio here to try to clean up the mess. Honestly, I'm a little conflicted on it, at even the premise of it. Like, I haven't even watched it yet, and somehow it's already kind of rubbing me the wrong way, because it's just like, oh, so now you want to go say you're sorry and backtrack. Now that you fucked the whole thing up for no reason. So it just proves this all really was for no reason. Totally uncalculated, no strategy, just total incompetence. Anyway, with that said, I guess in theory, I'm happy that we're now trying to improve the relationship that we ruined with Europe. It's probably too little too late, but let's watch. Let's watch. I want to hear him out. Also, he's one of the only actually, like, people with some level of intelligence, some amount of brain matter in his head in the Trump administration. He's not a total moron, so.
Thank you.
For what it's worth.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We gather here today as members of a historic alliance, an alliance that saved and changed the world. You know, when this conference began in 1963...
Yeah, that's what I've been saying.
It was in a nation, actually it was on a continent, that was divided against itself. The line between communism and freedom ran through the heart of Germany. The first barbed fences of the Berlin Wall had gone up just 2 years prior.
I mean, if you can be a little bit more specific and say it's the line between authoritarianism and freedom. Of course, you have to say communism because the Trump administration is extremely authoritarian. So, let's just say communism.
Prior. And just months before that first conference, before our predecessors first met here in Munich, the Cuban Missile Crisis had brought the world to the brink of nuclear destruction. Even as World War II still burned fresh in the memory of Americans and Europeans alike, we found ourselves staring down the barrel of a new global catastrophe, one with the potential for a new kind of destruction, more apocalyptic and final than anything before in the history of mankind. The time of that first gathering, Soviet communism was on the march. Thousands of years of Western civilization hung in the balance. At that time, victory was far from certain. But we were driven by a common purpose. We were unified not just by what we were fighting against. We were unified by what we were fighting for. And together, Europe and America prevailed. And a continent was rebuilt.
Yes, these were the good old days.
People prospered. In time, the East and West blocks were reunited.
Well, okay, not so good, but...
A civilization was once again made whole. That infamous wall that had cleaved this nation into two came down, and with it, an evil empire. And the East and West became one again. But the euphoria of this triumph led us to a dangerous delusion that we had entered, quote, the end of history, that every nation would now be a liberal democracy, that the ties formed by trade and by commerce alone would now replace nationhood, that the rules-based global order, an overused term, would now replace the national interest, and that we would now live in a world without borders where everyone became a citizen of the world. This was a foolish idea that ignored both human nature and it ignored the lessons of over 5,000 years of recorded human history.
I feel like he's conflating some things almost on purpose. I don't really like that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like he's conflating the rules-based world order, which has been a, people like Mark Carty and Mertz the other day at this conference was talking about how that has shifted and we're shifting away from the rules-based. And he's conflating that with like, oh, we want no borders and everybody's a citizen everywhere. And it's like, I mean, they're not necessarily the same thing.
And it has cost us dearly. In this delusion,
But okay.
We embraced a dogmatic vision of free and unfettered trade, even as some nations protected their economies and subsidized their companies to systematically undercut ours, shuttering our plants, resulting in large parts of our societies being deindustrialized, shipping millions of working and middle-class jobs overseas, and handing control of our critical supply chains to both adversaries and rivals. We increasingly outsourced our sovereignty to international institutions while many nations invest.
That's a very complicated subject. I'm considering, like, I could go on and ramble about that whole thing, what he just said about free trade and deindustrialization for way too long, and it would be really boring, so I'm not going to do that. But I just feel like he way oversimplified it, I guess, is my main concern there. Where it's like, okay, but you have to realize that we don't want to be China. Like, if you look at China or Vietnam, like, their manufacturing sectors, like, don't get me wrong, back in the day when it was there was a robust manufacturing economy here in the USA, for example, like, yeah, that was great while it lasted, but then other parts of the world figured out how to do it, and they're doing it for dirt cheap now. But guess what? We get to benefit from that dirt cheap, those dirt cheap products and labor, because they sell it to us for very cheap. So we don't want to compete now that people are competing down at that level to create these products, to manufacture them. Those glory days are over. There's no going back. Sorry, we got to figure something else out. Like, you don't want to compete making T-shirts with Vietnam unless you want people making 50 cents a day.
And massive welfare states at the cost of maintaining the ability to defend themselves. This, even as other countries have invested in the most rapid military buildup in all of human history and have not hesitated to use hard power to pursue their own interests. To appease a climate cult, we have imposed energy policies on ourselves that are impoverishing our people, even as our competitors exploit oil and coal and natural gas and anything else, not just to power their economies, but to use as leverage against our own. And in a pursuit of a world without borders, we opened our doors.
That is an interesting, debate. I find that interesting, because it is obviously true that, and it's an incredibly high moral to set those standards against yourself. It's super high integrity and high moral society that would do that. But it is, of course, inefficient and putting yourself at a disadvantage on the global stage, But it's to save the frickin' planet, which is pretty important. So.
To an unprecedented wave of mass migration that threatens the cohesion of our societies, the continuity of our culture, and the future of our people. We made these mistakes together. And now, together, we owe it to our people to face those facts and to move forward to rebuild. Under President Trump, the United States of America will once again take on the task of renewal and restoration, driven by a vision of a future as proud, as sovereign, and as vital as our civilization's past. And while we are prepared, if necessary, to do this alone, it is our preference and it is our hope to do this together with you, our friends here in Europe. For the United States and Europe,
I don't know, man. It just feels like some bullshit, like abusive boyfriend that, is like, I guess I'll do it alone, but after he beats you, he leaves and he's like, if you want to do this alone, then I guess that's what we're gonna do. But I want to get back together. It's like, well, then maybe you shouldn't have beat him. You should have beat her up.
We belong together. America was founded 250 years ago, but the roots began here on this continent long before. The men who settled and built the nation of my birth arrived on our shores carrying the memories and the traditions and the Christian faith of their ancestors as a sacred inheritance, an unbreakable link between the old world and the new. We are part of one civilization, Western civilization. We are bound to one another by the deepest bonds that nations could share, forged by centuries of shared history, Christian faith, culture, heritage, language, ancestry, and the sacrifices our forefathers made together for the common civilization to which we have fallen heir. And so this is why we Americans may sometimes come off as a little direct and urgent in our counsel. This is why President Trump...
I don't like it. I'm sorry. I wanted to like this, but so far I'm not. I'm just not enjoying this. We might come off as a little direct. You mean a little bit of a fucking total asshole dickhead backstabbing? Is that what you mean? Also, Americans are known for being the opposite of direct, so it's just like, it doesn't make any sense.
Demands seriousness and reciprocity from our friends here in Europe. The reason why, my friends, is because we care deeply. We care deeply about your future and ours.
Who does? Why don't we get Trump up here to say some of this shit? Then I'll believe it.
And if at times we disagree, our disagreements come from our profound sense of concern about a Europe with which we are connected, not just economically, not just militarily. We are connected spiritually, and we are connected culturally. We want Europe to be strong. We believe that Europe must survive. Because the two great wars of the last century serve for us as history's constant reminder that ultimately our destiny is and will always be intertwined with yours. Because we know that the fate of Europe will never be irrelevant to our own. National security, which this conference is largely about, is not merely a series of technical questions. How much we spend on defense or where, how we deploy it, these are important questions. They are. But they are not the fundamental one. The fundamental question we must answer at the outset is, what exactly are we defending? Because armies do not fight for abstractions. Armies fight for a people. Armies fight for a nation. Armies fight for a way of life. And that is what we are defending. A great civilization.
Yeah, that's why you can't expect your army to, you can't instruct them to go invade Greenland, for example. That's how you get your army to be totally disinterested, their loyalty gone.
And that is what we are defending. A great civilization that has every reason to be proud of its history, confident of its future, and aims to always be the master of its own economic and political destiny. It was here, in Europe, where the ideas that planted the seeds of liberty that changed the world were born. It was here, in Europe, where which gave the world the rule of law, the universities, and the scientific revolution. It was this continent that produced the genius of Mozart and Beethoven, of Dante and Shakespeare, of Michelangelo and Da Vinci, of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. And this is the place where the vaulted ceilings of the Sistine Chapel and the towering spires of the great cathedral in Cologne, they testify not just to the greatness of our past or to a faith in God that inspired these marvels. They foreshadow the wonders that await us in our future. But only if we are unapologetic in our heritage and proud of this common inheritance can we together begin the work of envisioning and shaping our economic and our political future. Deindustrialization was not inevitable. It was a conscious policy choice, a decades-long economic undertaking that stripped our nations of their wealth, of their productive capacity, and of their independence. And the loss of our supply chain sovereignty was not a function of a prosperous and healthy system of global trade. It was foolish. It was a foolish but voluntary transformation of our economy that left us dependent on others for our needs and dangerously vulnerable to.
What is in his mouth? What he's saying is interesting, and I'm actually enjoying, compared to like a Trump speech or something, this is actually, coherent. So I'm like, that's good.
That left us dependent.
But what the hell's in his mouth?
On others for our needs and dangerously vulnerable to crisis. Mass migration isn't some fringe concern of little consequence. It was and continues to be a crisis which is transforming and destabilizing societies all across the West. Together, we can reindustrialize our economies and rebuild our capacity to defend our people. But the work of this new alliance should not be focused just on military cooperation and reclaiming the industries of the past. It should also be focused on together advancing our mutual interests in new frontiers, unshackling our ingenuity, our creativity, and the dynamic spirit to build a new Western century. Commercial space travel and cutting-edge artificial intelligence, industrial automation and flex manufacturing, creating a Western supply chain for critical minerals not vulnerable to extort.
Commercial space travel guy. That one just always tickles me. That's great. That's Elon Musk shit, right? Commercial space travel. That's what we're all worried about right now. That's what we need. Commercial space travel. Fucking idiots. I'm sorry, but it just sounds so ridiculously out of touch. And I'm sorry, I'm nitpicking on that. Because like I said, this is not, it's overall, I'm happy this speech was made. Although I disagree with half of it. But commercial space travel. So that the billionaires can go take a vacation on the moon. I don't give a shit.
From other powers and a unified effort to compete for market share in the economies of the global South. Together, we can not only take back control of our own industries and supply chains, we can prosper in the areas that will define the 21st century. But we must also gain control of our national borders. Controlling who and how many people enter our countries, this is not an expression of xenophobia. It is not hate. It is a fundamental act of national sovereignty. And the failure to do so is not just an abdication of one of our most basic duties owed to our people. It is an urgent threat to the fabric of our societies and the survival of our civilization itself. And finally, we can no longer place the so-called global order above the vital interests of our people and our nations. We do not need to abandon the system of international cooperation we authored. And we don't need to dismantle the global institutions of the old order that together we built. But these must be reformed. These must be rebuilt. For example, the United Nations still has tremendous potential to be a tool for good.
A lot of this just sounds like cope, you know what I mean? I can't help but feel that way. Like he's trying to rectify all the psycho, stupid Trump policies and statements that's coming out of the Trump administration over the last few months and year. With like logic and reason, and it's hard to rectify that, you know what I mean?
Good in the world. But we cannot ignore that today, on the most pressing matters before us, it has no answers and has played virtually no role. It could not solve the war in Gaza. Instead, it was American leadership that freed captives from barbarians and brought about a fragile truce. It has not solved the war in Ukraine. It took American leadership in partnership with many of the countries here today just to bring the two sides to the table in search of a still elusive peace. It was powerless to constrain the nuclear program of radical Shia clerics in Tehran. That required 14 bombs dropped with precision from American B-2 bombers. And it was unable to address the threat to our security from a narco-terrorist dictator in Venezuela. Instead, it took American special forces to bring this fugitive to justice. In a perfect world, all of these problems and more would be solved by diplomats.
As if we didn't do that just to get their oil.
And strongly,
like, that's what I'm saying when I was saying he's coping. Like, yeah, the dude was a total bastard and a loser and an illegitimate president. True. But the fact that we did that just to go take their oil is also not okay. Unfortunately.
Its resolutions. But we do not live in a perfect world. And we cannot continue to allow those who blatantly and openly threaten our citizens and endanger our global stability to shield themselves behind abstractions of international...
So who's threatening the global stability? I'm confused. I mean, I can name a few.
Endanger our global stability to shield themselves behind abstractions of international law which they themselves routinely violate. This is the path that President Trump and the United States has embarked upon. It is the path we ask you here in Europe to join us on. It is a path we have walked together before and hope to walk together again. For 5 centuries, before the end of the Second World War, the West had been expanding. Its missionaries, its pilgrims, its soldiers, its explorers pouring out from its shores to cross oceans, settle new continents, build vast empires extending out across...
Resettled some continents.
...the globe. But in 1945, for the first time since the age of Columbus, it was contracting. Europe was in ruins. Half of it lived behind an iron curtain, and the rest looked like it would soon follow. The great Western empires had entered into terminal decline, accelerated by godless communist revolutions and by anti-colonial uprisings that would transform the world and drape...
Is he making a case for American imperialism?
...the red hammer and sickle across vast swaths of the map in the years to come. Against that backdrop, then, as now, many came to believe that the West's age of dominance had come to an end, and that our future was destined to be a faint and feeble echo of our past. But together, our predecessors recognized that decline was a choice, and it was a choice they refused to make. This is what we did together once before, and this is what President Trump and the United States want to do again now, together with you. And this is why we do not want our...
I can't stand it when he says President Trump. Like, just stop. How about he comes up here and says it then? Because I've never heard Trump say a single fucking thing in that realm of what you just said.
Allies to be weak, because that makes us weaker. We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength.
Is that what we want? Is that what Trump wants? Somehow I don't think so. Somehow I don't think that's the incentive, the motivation for Trump's actions. I think he literally just viewed, for instance, NATO, the 5% target, the 2% target for NATO funding as just like, oh, America's getting a bad deal because we're spending more and they should be spending more too. There wasn't any more deeper thought than that. You can try to attribute some, noble thoughts and principles to it beyond that, but I think you're just making shit up.
Themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength. This is why we do not want our allies to be shackled by guilt and shame. We want allies who are proud of their...
There's nothing Rubio could say here that would make me forget that Trump is a total backstabbing, piece of shit, tyrannical, authoritarian bastard. And I hate him. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, there's nothing Rubio could say.
Culture and of their heritage, who understand that we are heirs to the same great and noble civilization, and who together with us are willing and able to defend it.
In fact, the first order of action to pursue what Rubio's saying here, you know, should be ousting Trump. Get him the hell out of here. That's what he should say. And to prove that we want to restore, we want to do this together with you, I'm going to start the impeachment process. I'm going to call for the Trump's impeachment. There we go.
And this is why we do not want allies to rationalize the broken status quo rather than reckon with what is necessary to fix it. For we in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers.
They definitely know we have no interest in being polite. Sorry, I'm looking outside. I hear doors slamming. That's abundantly obvious, huh? We have no interest in being polite.
Have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline. We do not.
It's also just like such I feel like it's such revisionist history to be like, oh, the West decline. Like, what are you talking about? What decline? What? Like, I'm struggling to even understand who what are we declining relative to? What, because China has lifted some people out of poverty? Does that mean we're declined?
Seek to separate.
Like, Russia has been in decline. You know what I mean? You go back 80 years till today, Russia is the one that was on a decline. Not the West, not USA, not Europe.
But to revitalize an old friendship and renew the greatest civilization in human history. What we want is a reinvigorated alliance that recognizes that...
That's what we want. Oh, I thought we were trying to destroy NATO. Last I heard from Trump, I thought we don't even need NATO and that they never even did anything for us.
What has ailed our societies is not just a set of bad policies, but a malaise of hopelessness and complacency. An alliance is the alliance that we want is one that is not paralyzed into inaction by fear. Fear of climate change, fear of war, fear of technology. Instead, we want an alliance that boldly races into the future. And the only fear we have is the fear of the shame of not leaving our nations prouder.
The only thing to fear is fear itself.
Stronger, and is the fear of the shame of not leaving our nations prouder, stronger, and wealthier for our children. An alliance ready to defend our people, to safeguard our interests, and to preserve the freedom of action that allows us to shape our own destiny. Not one that exists to operate a global welfare state and atone for the purported sins of past generations. An alliance that does not allow its power to be outsourced, constrained, or subordinated to systems beyond its control. One that does not depend on others for the critical necessities of its national life. And one that does not maintain the polite pretense that our way of life is just one among many.
I like the framing of, like, we don't depend upon others for the critical things that we need. It's like, think about what you're saying. You're saying that we are printing funny money backed by nothing and giving it to places like China, who are then taking their actual critical resources out of their ground and giving it to us. You don't want that? You don't want that. You'd rather we just use up our own critical resources and China keeps theirs? You don't want to exchange our funny money for their actual real resources in their ground? Because then we're depending on them? We're depending on them to give us their resources. It's an interesting way to frame it. I don't know. I think we should think about that.
And that asks for permission before
You sure we don't want that?
it acts. And above all, an alliance based on the recognition that we, the West, have inherited together. What we have inherited together is something that is unique and distinctive and irreplaceable. Because this, after all, is the very foundation of the transatlantic bond. Acting together in this way, we will not just help recover a sane foreign policy, it will restore to us a clear sense of ourselves. It will restore a place in the world. And in so doing, it will rebuke and deter the forces of civilizational erasure that today menace both America and Europe alike. So in a time of headlines heralding the end of the transatlantic era, let it be known and clear to all.
I love to know that that has irked the Trump administration, though. That's funny. That is funny. So the speeches are working, guys. And it's funny because you guys aren't even doing that as like a strategy. It's not like you're trying to manipulate people. And I think that's obvious. And I think that's why it's caused this kind of panic, frankly, to where they send Rubio to give this speech. It's like, oh shit, guys, I think we miscalculated. Okay, I don't think actually did anyone run the calculations on this? Oh shit. So I shouldn't have said that the NATO troops never did anything good for us, and I shouldn't have threatened Greenland with military force, and I should have been on Ukraine's side instead of Russia's. And now our closest alliance is fading away. They're actually thinking about leaving us. You know, it's like once again, it's like a abusive relationship. It's like, wait, she's actually leaving me? I didn't think you'd ever actually leave. Now we're up here coping about, no, it wasn't anything what you heard and saw. It wasn't that. It's actually that we love you.
That this is neither our goal nor our wish. Because for us Americans, our home may be in the Western Hemisphere, but we will always be a child of Europe.
Obviously, America, as it is today, is descendant from Europe, like the nation. But I don't like how he said like Americans are a child of Europe, because Americans are from everywhere. Okay, that's the great thing about America, and that's how America is, and that's how America has been. That's actually one of its founding principles. It's not about what you look like. It's not about where you're from. It's about what you believe in, your principles, individual liberty, prosperity, making your own way, you know? That at least, and I know that some people might say, whatever, that's not my point. My point is, that's what it's about. If you believe in those principles, and you and you know, and in a lot of places on Earth, I know that we poke fun at America. You know, Europeans have poked fun at America plenty, and rightfully so. But obviously, compared to most places on Earth, it has been an excellent place to live, with a lot of opportunities that other places don't have. And so that's what makes America great, and has made America great. And it's the reason why so many people immigrated to America. And it's got nothing to do with, in fact, one of our greatest cities, if not the greatest city in America, New York City, is the most diverse. I mean, you have people from all over the world. And they just have a common, they have common principles, you know? It's not about them all looking the same or being from Europe or being from a certain place. But of course, the birth of those American principles was Europe. Of course, that's true.
Our story began with an Italian explorer whose adventure into the great unknown to discover a new world brought Christianity to the Americas and became the legend that defined the
I'm sick of him talking about Christianity. I'm sorry. I'm just sick of him making this religious at all. Have you ever heard of a separation of church and state? That's a pretty, the freedom of religion. You know, that's the First Amendment of America. Okay, stop talking about Christianity. We're not a Christian nation. Oh my God, man, I'm just...
nation of...
And there's nothing wrong with Christianity, of course. Well, there's things wrong with everything, but you know what I'm saying. It's just, I just can't stand this shit.
Our pioneer nation. Our first colonies were built by English settlers, whom we owe not just the language we speak, but the whole of our political and legal system. Our frontiers were shaped by Scots-Irish, that proud, hardy clan from the hills of Ulster that gave us Davy Crockett and Mark Twain and Teddy Roosevelt and Neil Armstrong. Our great Midwestern heartland was built by German farmers and craftsmen who transformed empty plains into a global agricultural powerhouse. And by the way, dramatically upgraded the quality of American beer. Our expansion into the interior followed the footsteps of French fur traders and explorers whose names, by the way, still adorn the street signs and town names all across the Mississippi Valley. Our horses, our ranches, our rodeos, the entire romance of the cowboy archetype that became synonymous.
I don't get his point. It's all obviously it's all true. It's just like, yeah. And then we stabbed you in the back. It's like, okay.
Synonymous with the American West. These were born in Spain. And our largest and most iconic city was named New Amsterdam before it was named New York.
Even old New York was once New Amsterdam. Why they changed it, I can't say. People just liked it better that way.
And you know that in the year that my country was founded, Lorenzo and Catalina Giraldi lived in Casal Monferrato in the Kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia. And Jose and Manuel Reina lived in Sevilla, Spain. I don't know what, if anything, they knew about the 13 colonies which had gained their independence from the British Empire. But here's what I'm certain of. They could have never imagined that 250 years later, one of their direct descendants would be back here today on this continent as the chief diplomat of that infant nation. And yet here I am, reminded by my own story that both are histories.
All I hear is that America's a nation of immigrants, you fucking moron. That's what I think you're trying to say. Why don't you say that? Sorry, this speech is actually... I've heard great things about this speech, and for some reason the whole thing just pissed me off.
And our fates will always be linked. Together we
take that shit out of your mouth.
Built a shattered continent in the wake of 2 devastating world wars. When we found ourselves divided once again by the Iron Curtain, the Free West linked arms with the courageous dissidents struggling against tyranny in the East to defeat Soviet communism. We have fought against each other, then reconciled, then fought, then reconciled again. And we have bled and died side by side on battlefields from Kapyong to Kandahar. And I'm here today to leave it clear that America is charting the path for a new century of prosperity. And that once again,
we are?
We want to do it together with you, our cherished allies and our oldest friends.
That calls into question all of our policies and tariffs and bullshit that we've been doing for the past year. That's great to hear, but I don't understand how you rectify that with what you've been doing. I don't like it.
We want to do it together with you, with a Europe that is proud of its heritage and of its history, with a Europe that has the spirit of creation and liberty that sent ships out into uncharted seas and birthed our civilization, with a Europe that has the means to defend itself and the will to survive. We should be proud of what we achieved together in the last century, but now we must confront and embrace the opportunities of a new one. Because yesterday is over. The future is inevitable, and our destiny together awaits. Thank you.
I'm unenthused, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know what to say. That wasn't even close to what I was hoping it would be. I guess, if you just took a couple excerpts from it, then I would be like, yeah, that's good, Europe, America, together, yay. But reacting to the entire speech, I'm just... I don't know who this Diario AS. Check them out, link down below, guys. What I like most about his speech is he means it. Yeah, at least there's that. He did seem authentic. Although also coping. I hope every American listens to this speech. Thanks for sharing. I listened. I listened. Not sure my reaction was what. The most consequential speech that needs to be heard by all. I'm sorry. I don't know where the mix-up, is between me and all the headlines I'm reading, all the comments I'm reading about this speech. I guess if you just take the 30,000-foot view of it and say, okay, America's retreating from Europe and undermining its alliances, its most important alliances, and insulting them. And we're now trying to rectify that a little bit. I guess that's good. I mean, that is good in my opinion. That's good. It does feel like a bit too little too late, and a lot of cope was in there. But that's the only thing I can say. If I zoom way out, I guess the intentions are kind of good. I don't know. I was really hoping to be very inspired and moved by that speech, but I wasn't. I'm not gonna lie. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.